Good afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me to testify today. Many of us in the human rights community really appreciate your attention to Cambodia, which is an all too often overlooked country, seen by many to lack geostrategic significance. Mr. Chairman, as you suggested yourself just now, Cambodia at this moment is standing on a precipice of sorts. Over 20 years after the Paris peace agreements, over 30 years since the mass crimes against humanity and genocide that occurred, the country's civil and political situation remains highly problematic. Human rights, democracy, the rule of law, things that were promised in the 1991 Paris agreements remain troublingly elusive. The problem here isn't inertia or habit. It's the result of a set of particular political facts, a particular person, in fact, and a particular party. Cambodia's ruler, Hun Sen, and his party, the Cambodian People's Party. Hun Sen and the CPP control almost every aspect of governance and civil life in Cambodia, including the military and police forces. All of Cambodia's top military and police commanders sit on the CPP's Central Committee. Hun Sen, in power since 1985, has consolidated his CPP-based rule so that he controls almost every lever of power in Cambodia, and no decision of any significance is made without his or his party's consent. One of the results of this situation is that Cambodia's supposed democratic governance is not, in fact, democratic. Now, given that Cambodia is set to hold elections less than 20 days from now, I thought it would be useful to provide a quick review of the last 4 elections to explain the context and the reality of this upcoming one. And that's what I've done in the written version of my testimony, which is submitted for the record. I note here that in the first election after the Paris agreements in 1993, Hun Sen and his party actually lost, and yet unwilling to accept the results of the elections, he threatened to go to war with the opponents to ensure his continued leadership. I also noticed the major violence in the run-up to the country's second elections in 1998, including a March 30th, 1997 grenade attack on opposition leader Sam Rainsy across the street from the National Assembly, an attack in which the FBI concluded that Hun Sen's bodyguard unit was actually implicated. And I note that in July 1997, Hun Sen carried out a coup against his co-prime minister and installed a pliant politician in his place. Do you remember this Newsweek cover from 1997? Perhaps you don't. But this is the vision of Hun Sen that we had at that time, 15 years ago. His forces, in the wake of that coup, carried out a wave of violence and summary executions that led to congressional hearings like this one here in the United States, international condemnation, and a disruption of aid to Cambodia. That was 15 years ago. A lot of blood was spilled, people were killed, and images of bodies floating down the Mekong River were carried by media services around the world. In 2003, and again in 2008, Hun Sen and the CPP again dominated the electoral process. Then, as now, they controlled the appointments, the membership of the National Election Committee, as well as the courts. That was how it was then, and that is how it is today. At this time, the leader of the opposition, Sam Rainsy, is not even able to campaign. He's been living in exile, convicted in absentia in a politically motivated case, and he's not even on the ballot as a candidate. And notably, the small slate of standing opposition candidates were, as you said, kicked out of the parliament last month for spurious and politically motivated reasons. Although Sam Rainsy recently announced that he plans to return to Cambodia in 10 days' time to campaign for his party's candidates, he's likely to be arrested and jailed upon return. The United States has already told Hun Sen and his colleagues that an election with a leader of the opposition banned from the contest and the small opposition dispersed, the legitimacy of such an election is in question. If Sam Rainsy is actually put in prison when he returns, the question is essentially answered. The election will not be a legitimate democratic exercise. What will occur on July 28th and what is occurring beforehand is an illegitimate theatrical enterprise aimed at appeasing the international community. So the main question for the United States now is not what the administration can do or demand in the next 19 days, but what the United States will say and do after the election. What will the United States do to address this, and will they again condone what amounts to fake democracy? That's the question before us now. I will end by essentially saying that Human Rights Watch believes that it's time for a stronger U.S. policy on Cambodia. There's a great deal that can be done to improve the situation there. The United States can use its empowerment of groups in Cambodia through USAID funding who serve as a check on Hun Sen's power. They can stand more visibly with dissidents and activists who seek to expose government abuses. And the United States can disassociate itself from Hun Sen. Cutting aid to military assistance, IMAT, FMF, is a given at this point in our view. There are several other ideas that I'd like to run through in the question period, but we're hopeful that Secretary Kerry, as you said, will speak himself after the election and condemn the exercise and not just leave it to State Department spokespersons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sifton. Ms.